Hello, I'm Jacqueline,
And I'm Eric.
and this is
Our Point of View.
Today on Our Point of View, we are going to be talking with a very special guest. We're going to be talking with State Representative Derrick Jackson from District 64. And you know what we're going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about the government shutdown. That's something everyone is talking about, everyone is concerned about, which they should be. But before we get to that, we want to know a little bit about Mr. Derrick Jackson. Can you give us a little bit about your political background?
Okay, first off, thank you, Jacqueline and Eric, for allowing me to be a guest today. I serve in District 64, which consists of City of South Fulton, Union City, Fairburn, College Park, Tyrone, Fayetteville, and a small glimpse of Peachtree City. And so it keeps me busy.
Yeah, you're busy.
My political background, though, I was elected in 2016. Prior to that, I did 10 years in corporate America for a company called General Electric. But prior to that, I did 22 years in the United States Navy. And so
Appreciate your service.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
your service.
So,
Thank you so much.
my wife and I both, we're both retired naval officers. So between the two of us, we have about 48, 49 years of
Wow.
military experience.
Awesome. Awesome.
Great.
That's good. So, when you decided to get into politics, what's your main goal for it? How far do you want to go?
So much like everything else, you tend to get in politics because you want to make a difference.
Right.
And that was my driving motivation, in particular around healthcare. My wife is a breast cancer survivor.
Okay.
And so sitting around listening to other patients, I discovered that, we could do more. And the benefit of us doing more, no one should have to have the conundrum of thinking about taking care of their medical needs and paying the rent or keeping food on the table.
Right.
But I was really inspired to want to make a difference in my community. And then that, of course, came into fruition in 2016.
Okay, so is this your first title of being a politician?
This is my first opportunity to be an elected official.
Okay.
Of course, when you're in the military, you can't serve in any kind of capacity.
Okay.
And then when I was in corporate America, General Electric kept me traveling.
Right.
But when the time persisted, I made that move to put my name in a hat and knocked on doors. And let everybody know, not so much what I can do for them, but what we can all do for our community,
Right.
right? And making sure our voices are heard around gentrification, around Medicaid expansion, justice reform. There's a plethora of things that we can tackle together.
Right.
So you felt now was the time to jump, to get into politics and to put out your contribution to the community. Why is that?
So one of the things, and that's an excellent question. So one of the things that I discovered while I was serving in the military, the Navy gave me an opportunity to be an ambassador to this great country, right? And so every time we would go to other countries, you can always see that there's a little bit more that we can do. And so I just felt that it was a calling to service. And my service really starts even before the military. Even as a little boy growing up, my mother used to challenge me to knock on doors and help the next neighbor shovel snow and rake their leaves. And so service has always been part of my DNA. And then after talking to a lot of folks, because that's what they'll do, Eric, they're like, man, you should run for office. Or you go and talk to your neighbor, Jacqueline may have a problem, and then they'll turn around and like, you should run for office. So I'm like, all right, Lord, maybe that's confirmation.
Right.
And so when at that time, State Representative Virgil Flood was considering to retire, he made that announcement. And of course, so many individuals put their name in the hat. But God saw it fit for me to be victorious.
All right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So is this as far as you want to go with it,
Well,
Mr. President?
my grandmother, bless her soul, would say never say never.
Never
Right.
say never. Right.
But I want God to lead me in the right direction.
Right.
When I had the opportunity to meet President Obama, that was a very powerful thing. Right now, we're reading Michelle Obama's book.
I am too, Becoming.
Yes,
oh
Becoming.
my goodness, it's amazing.
And I'm getting goosebumps because it's such a parallel for me and my wife.
Right.
Her name is also Michelle.
Okay.
And so,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Uh-oh.
So we never know where this journey may take us.
Right.
But
Right.
for here and right now, I want to continue to do the work of District 64 and Georgians across this great state that we live in, make sure that we have a seat at the table.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to start on our conversation about the government shutdown. We'll be right back.
Got directions to the nightclub here. And if you get lost, just hit me on the old horn.
Tom's my best friend, but ever since he bought a new house,
It's a $10 cover? Oh, okay. You can see that on the website.
he's been acting more and more like his dad.
Come on, guys, jump in. The water's fine. Tom Pritchard. How we doing? Hi there, Tom Pritchard. Can we get a round of jalapeno poppers for me and the boys, please? I've been saving a lot of money with Progressive lately, so.
Progressive can't protect you from becoming your parents, but we can protect your home and auto when you bundle with us.
When you use Groupon in your neighborhood, you're not only saving money, you're also supporting local business. I mean, what kind of person wouldn't want to support local business?
I hate local business. Family owned, even better. Shut it down.
When you save in your neighborhood, it feels so good. It didn't feel good for him, though. Download the app and save. Groupon.
And welcome back to our point of view. We have our special guest here, Derek Jackson, state representative out of South Fulton County, and we're just so happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
But we want to dig right into this government shutdown because we clearly see that it's causing a lot of dissension, it's causing a lot of rift, especially when it really doesn't have to, but there are a lot of mitigating circumstances. So just getting right into it, how did we get here?
So we got here because it was manufactured, self-manufactured by the individual that's occupying the Oval Office. They say President Trump said that it was because of the wall, right? But if you look at the history of when we've had government shutdowns, it was nowhere close to as being controversial as this wall.
Right.
And here's the sad part. This government shutdown right now is the longest government shutdown ever in the history of the United States.
Wow.
If you look at all the other government shutdowns, it was not about a very contentious topic such as a wall,
Right.
which continues to be redefined and move each and every day or every tweet.
Every day.
And, right?
Yeah.
And so, although it directly impacts nearly 800,000 federal employees, here in the state of Georgia, it really impacts 136,000 of those federal employees.
Wow.
72,000 thus far have been furloughed. So they could be our neighbors, they could be our friends, our family members that are employed at the FAA, IRS, the Food Drug Administration,
Right.
the CDC. I mean, so anything where our federal employees in the state of Georgia, those 136 plus of them, 136,000 plus of them, they are asked right now, as you noticed last week when the president used the Oval Office to address America and asked them to make adjustments. Well, I'm not sure what adjustments he's talking about because I don't have a father that would give me $413 million like they did him.
Right.
But adjustments is not something that you could take lightly. As a matter of fact, one of my constituents is an immigration judge.
Okay.
Did you know when the immigration judge cannot take on another part-time job. They are prohibited to take on because they are federal judge. And so when you think about adjustments, what does adjustment mean when you need food on the table or gas in the car or keep your two college students in college?
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are some businesses and financial institutions that are telling our constituents, hey, we understand the situation that you're in. And so we'll go ahead and set up a program that allows for you not to negatively impact your credit score to go ahead and miss this mortgage or this rent.
Sure.
But that's not every financial institution. That's not every landlord because they too have bills. They too have families. And so when you think about the TSA in the world's busiest airport like Atlanta being asked to work without pay, what does that say about our security? I'm sure they're going to still do a good job, but in the back of that mind, that person's still a father, still a mother, still thinking about how do I make sure that my child continue to go to school, have food on the table, and a roof over their head. And so we are impacted significantly, either directly or indirectly, during this government shutdown.
Now, in the beginning with this wall, President Trump was saying that Mexico was going to pay for it. Why did he turn the channel and say, now we're going to pay for it?
So that's a great question, Jacqueline. So when you think about Donald J. Trump, since the time he rode down that golden escalator in his tower, right, he has always provided mistruths. And so when he said Mexico was going to pay for it, there was no integrity behind that statement. He didn't even discuss this with the president of Mexico. In fact, President Fox of Mexico expressed his response to that. He said,
no.
Mexico is not going to pay for this blank wall.
He said that up front.
He said that up front. And then you found Trump continue to change the story. And it is incredulous that the 32% that continue to support him continue to believe in this untruth. It is a flat out lie. You cannot hold America hostage.
That's basically what we're doing.
Okay.
They're holding us hostage.
Hold America hostage, taxpayers, to say that to live up to your promise that you gave to benefit yourself personally. Just like, you know, what he's doing with his hotel. The emolument clause. He made this whole show and said, hey, I'm going to turn this over to my children. They can run the business. I'm going to run the country. But that too was a lie because there were all those folders were empty. There was no sign, to my knowledge, to this date, there was nothing signed that transferred his partnership over to his children, right? And so Mexico's not going to pay for it. That whole thing was a lie. In fact, it was a way for them, his campaign team, to remind him, hey, talk about the immigration thing. So they just gave him something very, very simple. You know, who's going to pay for it? Mexico. And that's what happened. That slogan took off. And now he has to, you know, he made a promise that he can't, you know, pay for. And now he's asking for 325 million Americans to pay for a pledge that majority of us.
We didn't say nothing about
That's
it.
exactly right.
We ain't got nothing to do with that.
So like Mama said, don't write a check.
That's right, Eric. That you can't cash.
That's right.
And he's writing too many checks, right? And unfortunately, a great country like this, right? We're picking fights, and the reason why my immediate response to you was this is self-manufactured. The tariffs, right, and the trade war that impacts Georgia too. That's the reason why he had to come up with that $12 billion for farmers and agriculture, because we have soybeans that we ship over and export. We're doing phenomenal things here in Georgia that he's negatively impacting us for our import and export, our agriculture, our farming, the businesses that we have here that are global businesses. He's picking fights that are fights that should not be had. So we got to change this, and the only way we can really change it is at the ballot box.
So why is it that the Republicans are letting him do this? Why are they not saying, look, this is wrong?
Calling him on it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, why are they doing that?
You know, I think it's a dereliction of duty, to be honest with you. As a retired military officer, we all raise our right hand.
Sure.
This is more than just talking about service. We gave an oath to a constitution, not to a human being. This is not a monarchy. This is not something that they should take lightly. And we, as both Democrats as well as Republicans, have a responsibility when we raise our right hand and put our left hand on that Bible and give an oath.
Sure.
It's a complete dereliction of their duty. Mitch McConnell, which is the majority Senate leader, is not holding up to the oath that he gave to the United States Constitution and to Americans. And so I see this going to play out in a very devastating way. This is not going to be the same what took place back in 1974 with Nixon.
Right.
This is going to be very, very different because Republicans are not holding him accountable. And that's the benefit of being a public servant, where you all, as constituents,
Right.
and the media and journalists hold us accountable. And that's what we need to do with the Republicans right now, hold them accountable.
It's been interesting. They've been replaying President Obama's speech to the nation, talking about specifically immigration. And they cut it off and then go to Mitch McConnell talking about we're not going to pass this. So clearly there's some difference between what they were quick to do with President Obama versus with what they're doing with the president now.
You're exactly right. And that's the reason why this whole reason around the wall continues to be modified. First it's 25 billion.
Right.
Now it's 5.7 billion. First, President Obama wanted this wall when he clearly said, no, I didn't talk about no wall. What we did discuss, and that's the reason why we have to make sure shows like yours continue to speak truth to power and say, what we wanted was border security.
Right.
Since 9/11, one of the things that we have done as a country, Jacqueline and Eric, is to make sure that what took place on 9/11 would never happen again.
Right.
And the only way you can do that is strengthen borders. And both Republicans and Democrats, since 9/11, continue to do that.
Right.
We expanded Homeland Security. We made sure that all the technology, that every port of entry has the absolute best equipment.
Sure.
And so when we walk through the gates at our airports,
Right.
or you come in by way of ships and our ports and our docks, or by way of Mexico,
Sure.
we have strengthened border security like no other. And billions of dollars are invested, both Homeland Security, National Defense, Department of Defense, to make sure that we mitigate those potential situations. So when they talk about these 4,000 mysterious people, there were only 6. 6 terrorists that were on our watch list that we captured.
Right.
And so using this division of fear, using this wall metaphorically to talk about something else,
Right.
that
Distraction.
it's a distraction. And for Republicans not to carry out their oath of office is also egregious. And so here you have a party that typically like to use the Constitution.
Right.
What they tried to do with President Obama, a constitutional lawyer, he threw it back at him. Said, no, this is what this says. And this is what we're doing. And that's the reason why we got things like Affordable Care Act done while President Obama was there. But unfortunately, we became, I always say we were so impressed with President Obama that it put us in a lull.
Right. Yeah.
And then 2010 happened, then the Tea Party came, and then that stopped President Obama's agenda, and he had to do everything by way of executive order.
Right.
And then when President Trump got in office, you can just rip those executive orders to shreds.
Okay, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about our government shutdown with State Representative Derek Jackson. We'll be right back. More of Our Point of View.
You know, ABFF represents the very core of what has always sustained us as a people, community.
This is such a crucial space where we can see ourselves
and feel represented.
A film festival that said, you are enough.
This is where I started, where Ryan Coogler started.
The first major festival to have my work online.
Thank you for celebrating our art.
I feel the love.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah, Dad?
Hang on, buddy.
Alex, can we talk, honey?
Huh? What?
Never mind. We'll talk later.
Alex, you in there?
Nope.
Put off conversations about underage drinking long enough, and you might not have to have them at all. Find out how to start the conversation and stop underage drinking. Visit talkitoutnc.org.
Welcome back to Our Point of View. We are speaking with State Representative Derrick Jackson, and we're talking about the government shutdown. Okay, my question is national emergency. How was that supposed to pay for this wall?
So, because the president has certain executive powers, and he is also the commander-in-chief, there are ways, if deemed necessary, to use certain funding for a national emergency. And so if President Trump declared this wall as a national emergency for keeping us safe, right, which is under his purview, he can activate it, and that allows for him to pull monies from other departments.
Okay.
Here's the problem with that, because 3 of the areas he wants to pull money from, get this, Jacqueline, he wants to pull money from the disaster relief. And so we got disaster relief funds that we're currently sending over to Puerto Rico to help them get back on their feet. Billions and billions of dollars that are in this bucket of money. If he declares that this wall is a national emergency, and he used the definition of security, which is the reason why he tried, again, this is a fear tactic. He was talking about the caravan, and these thousands of people are rushing us, and they're about to invade us. He using all the right vernacular. But this is not one of those national emergencies. This is not like Pearl Harbor will be a perfect example. If Pearl Harbor situation happened on the soil of the United States, then that would be, something that a president from the Oval Office go to the American public and say, I deem this as a national emergency. 9/11, right, will be also considered under the right definition as a national emergency. We were, struck on our soil. The wall does not define a national emergency.
Yeah, I have a question. Now, President Trump originally was a businessman. He's not a politician. How did he know about this? Are the Republicans telling him this? So this is what you can do?
Right. The short answer is yes. And if you notice, a couple of days ago, Senator Lindsey Graham, right, started using the word national emergency. But here's the problem. President Trump is a business person. This is his first time in an elected office. And so this is a person that does not read, or he doesn't listen to his briefs or any of the discussions his cabinet members, other than they give him short sound bites that he puts in a Twitter form. Like, we're going to withdraw our troops from Syria. Huh? What?
Where'd that come from?
Exactly, right? So he's using sound bites from different individuals that are the last person that's in his ear, and creating this turmoil, these distractions. as you mentioned earlier. And so what we have to do, remain vigilant, remain calm, remain and not allow for fear to, be the word of the day. We have to allow for our faith to continue to guide us and know that there are individuals, there are elected officials that will continue to speak truth to power. And that's why I was so happy when we all showed up at the ballot box last November and flipped 40 seats. Yes. And now we have a House with Nancy Pelosi as the speaker that's going to hold him accountable.
Right.
And they're going to start issuing subpoenas. Representative Elijah Cummings already started.
Yes, sir.
Maxine Waters, they're already started. And so we're going to check, and there are 17 investigations, and there may be more, but 17 investigations going to look into his business practices, going to look at some of the things that he was saying and doing with Russians during his campaign. And even after he was, he gave the oath, right? So there's one part on what Donald Trump as the candidate, but it's something completely different, Donald Trump as the president. And so that's why the House have subpoena power to be able to dig deep and call each and every individual that they need to and show it on the camera, right? So the American public understand what the truth is and not be absorbed by all these 5,000 plus lies that he's been telling the last 2.5 years.
I got a statement, then it's going to lead to a question.
Okay.
You made mention of faith. The Bible states, study to show thyself approved. Clearly, President Obama studied. He was in the book. Now, the presidential seat is new. Those individuals that are serving in those seats haven't done it before.
Correct.
So they're learning.
Right.
But they have had some background.
That's right.
But President Obama, he studied. He surrounded himself with those individuals that would help him to be successful. It's clear that President Trump.
Okay, I got you.
President Trump didn't do that.
Right.
But because he is a business person,
right,
and because he had international relations,
right,
he was somewhat versed on world issues,
right,
I'll just say. So my question to you is, how does his base here in America continue to support him when they know philosophically or whichever other way it is that they know his practices are wrong?
Right. And
immoral.
And immoral. And I'm glad you said that, Eric, because right now, his base, they're being impacted in such a way that is contrary to what he promised them. He promised them, I'm going to bring manufacturing jobs. I'm going to do all these other things. But manufacturing jobs are being hit hard right now with this trade war with our, individuals overseas.
Sure.
His inexperience.
Right.
Now, I know you say he's a businessman. I don't think so. Here's the reason why.
No, I can go with that.
Because I do not equate a person to be able just to take his name and put it on a building and equate them the same as a chairman and CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
I gave you that.
Right? Okay. This is a small family business that has been operating on a global scale. Right? And they just and real good in marketing their name. I see a building, it's dilapidated, or it's a rundown, or they just want me to simply put my name on it, right, to attract other clientele. There's a golf course, I'm gonna go buy it and put my name on it.
Right.
Here's the other reason why I don't equate him as a sharp business person. If your parents gave you $413 million and say, do well, son, go out and have a good life, there's no doubt in my mind, not only you're going to have a leg up, but you're going to be in such a position of a network of folks.
Oh, sure.
Right? To be able to do things that the average American can't do.
Right.
And that's why he was perfectly positioned. And so he doesn't have the skill sets or the intellect
Right.
or the know-how
Right.
to be a business person, and he doesn't have the experience of being an elected official.
Right.
I just want to talk, and the reason why I like how you end that question in a statement with morals. It doesn't require much for you to be a good, decent human being.
Right.
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 To be able to say hello to your neighbor
Right.
and to understand and have a compassion to be able to say, this person needs help,
Right.
right? And that's the sad part. We have a president that has shown no capacity for compassion for no one other than himself,
Right.
right? He has placed his children in the worst predicament. I think he was sleeping during his civics class because he doesn't understand that if public service means you have a public life.
Right.
You are exposed. You have to be transparent.
Right.
And so when he didn't show his taxes, that was a red flag for me. We all have to be transparent. If you see me, if I drove up to your studio today in a Rolls Royce and you looking like, well, wait a minute. They only make $17,342 a year as an elected official in the state of Georgia.
Right.
$17,000. And I drove up in a Rolls Royce. There's a couple of questions you should ask me. Did I hit the lottery?
Is that an Uber?
Is it an Uber? Right? So, and it's your right as citizens
Right. Right.
to hold me and others elected officials accountable. And he doesn't understand that he's going to be held accountable. And so he doesn't have the skill sets. And it's clear that he refused to learn. I asked the public, if you went to a doctor and there are no degrees on the wall, and it said, and the doctor says to you, Jacqueline, we're going to have this surgery. As a matter of fact, I looked at the YouTube last night over your procedure. I think we're going to be good to go.
I'm going to turn around and walk right out of there.
That's right.
There you go.
Because experience matters.
That's right.
You could not effectively do audits and assess a building, make sure they're meeting certain codes if you did not have that experience.
Right.
If you didn't take time to read and say, okay, these are the things that you need.
Right.
What elected officials should be the same way.
Sure. Right.
You don't need a college degree to be an elected official. You don't have to be well studied. You don't even need experience. Either one of us could run for president tomorrow or governor, right? But it's the public, it's journalists, it's the television should hold us accountable and say, at a minimum, you got to hold the Constitution as your mirror. And every day when you wake up, that Constitution, you should be reflecting the Constitution. And part of that Constitution is good quality of life for everyone, not for a select few, everyone. If you are a citizen, you should get health care. You should be able to live wherever you could afford. You should not be persecuted, but because of the color of your skin, you should be able to love whoever you desire to love.
Right.
That's what the Constitution is there for. And then when an elected official speaks contrary or they're amoral, then we have a responsibility. We cannot be derelicts of our duty.
Well, you know, that Gold Star family at the Democratic National Convention say, hey, look,
That's right.
You need to know about the Constitution.
That's
I
right.
got it right here. Study it.
That's exactly right.
Study to show thyself approved.
Study to show thyself approved, right? It's great that we can go and listen to the pastor preach every Sunday,
Sure.
but there's got to be times you got to read that Bible for yourself.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
And just ask questions.
And we have a president that refuses to understand and learn about the Oval Office. We can't wait for him to decide which day he's going to pivot. He clearly told us at the age of 72, he's not relearning, and you can't change the spots of this this leopard. And that's
And he's
unfortunate.
gotten to the point where he's lied so much that he believes what he's saying. And it's easily, it comes out of his mouth easily.
And there was a time, Jacqueline, that if an elected official did one lie, we would say, you waffle or you flip-flop,
Yep.
right? If you look at all of Trump's 5,000 plus lies, the one they kept using on President Obama was only one. And it wasn't even a lie. He said, if you enroll in the Affordable Care Act, you can keep your doctor. And he meant that. But because of the legislation, the way it was written, you can't keep your own doctor. you're in a pool of doctors.
Right.
Right? And so every time Republicans say, well, President Obama lied too. Oh, what time did he lie? Oh, he said you can keep your doctor. Okay, that's one. Give me another one. But I can give you 5,000 lies that Trump, I made sure Trump
Right.
lied about, right? Okay?
Right.
5,000 documented, right? Even the most far-right critics are speaking out against Trump. I mean, journalists who love this country, saying this guy is unfit to be the president and the commander-in-chief. You have a lot of Republicans, strategists that are, I don't want to say defecting, but they now are independent because they cannot. Max Boot is a perfect one.
Yes.
Every time he is in front of the camera, Jacqueline, he is speaking out against Trump. Yeah. And he said, we don't have Reagan Republicans anymore. He said, because these Trump Republicans and Reagan Republicans are two separate things.
Right.
As a Democrat, I could talk to a Reagan Republican. I can't talk to a Trump Republican.
And with that being said, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. More with Our Point of View in a moment.
Beauty, clarity, depth, ease. Where simplicity meets perfection. The art of shine. Experience it with Mother's California Gold.
She kept you safe at night and made awkward situations light. She stayed by your side when your heart was broken. Again and again. She has always been there for you. Now it's your turn. And Northwell Health at Home can help. With medication management, rehabilitation, and assistance with daily care. Let our home care experts meet you where you want to be. At Home by Northwell Health.
Get up! This is where a kid fell down and a champion got up.
This is where shoes to fill became footsteps to follow.
The Golden State Warriors select Stephen Curry.
This is where ego was laid to rest. And humility rose in its place. But my mind is where every challenge I've ever faced has been won or lost.
And we're back. Brother Jackson, I have to ask you a question as it relates to the government shutdown. I'm a firefighter, and from a public safety perspective, we've got the Super Bowl that's coming up. And so a lot of the departments and agencies are uniting on a united front to make sure that we're protected. What's your perspective with the shutdown currently in its current state affecting public safety? Because we have plenty of partners out there, everything from FBI to Secret Service to U.S. Marshals, along with these other police agencies and fire agencies that will be assisting in making sure that the overall safety of the people is maintained. What's your thought about that and with the shutdown, how that could affect that?
Right. Well, that's an excellent question, Eric, because when you think about as we get closer to the Super Bowl, there are things that organizations and departments like yours are doing to make sure that we are prepared. Because not just for the Super Bowl day, we're talking about the events the week of, right?
Yes, yes.
And so depending on how long this government shutdown will really determine the integrity of our security. Sure. Let me give you a case in point. Take the TSA.
Yeah.
Okay, we're the home of the busiest airport in the world.
Yes, sir.
Over maybe 2/3 of those who are going to be attending the Super Bowl are flying in.
That's right.
Right. So as much as the fire department and the police department, the sheriffs and the GBI and the FBI, Homeland Security, you can do everything. But when it comes down to point of entry, right?
Here we go.
Could be your Achilles heel.
Sure.
And so if something slips through, you might have, again, TSAs, they're our neighbors, they're our family, they're our friends, but they're humans,
Right.
right? And so now you're talking about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks without a check, depending on how long this government shutdown occurs.
Right.
And of course they keep saying, well, we're gonna retro pay. Well, I gotta get there first.
Right.
I still have a 6-year-old I need to feed. I still have a job I need to go to. In order for me to come to the airport, I need gasoline.
Right.
There's no quick trip or gas station that's gonna say, hey, I know you're in a tough spot right now. We're in a government shutdown. Go ahead and fill up your car and come back when you get a paycheck.
It's not the
Nope,
business
it's not
they're
gonna
in.
happen.
That's exactly right. And so it can hurt us instead of helping us, this government shutdown. We need to make sure that security is paramount,
Right.
but you need resources in order to do that.
Right.
And you need people who are in their right state of mind to be able to help you effectively carry out the strategies and the tactics that we're talking about.
Sure.
Right? If a person is hungry, they're not worrying about their job. It's the same example I gave to a 4th grade teacher. If that 4th grader is hungry, you can write all the information on the chalkboard all day,
Right.
but they're thinking about
That
their
growling in
their
their stomach.
needs,
Mhm.
right? And so that's why this government shutdown has to end. It could negatively impact our preparation for the Super Bowl, which is seen around the world
Right.
by hundreds of millions of folks.
Right.
Right. And so we have to make sure that our resources are there. Our people are the greatest resource, and they need to be paid.
And just before, and very quickly, there's also a lesson in that too, because they've been talking about how people have been in a situation where they're living check to check. How can people improve that situation so that they don't find themselves living check to check or having something like this to unexpectedly happen where they're waiting for the lights to get turned off or the gas to get shut off or the power to suddenly get halted?
I by design, I don't think any of us want to live paycheck to paycheck. Let me tell you what we can do as elected officials. How about improving the minimum wage? How about paying you what you're worth?
Right.
Right? Let's start there.
Yes.
See, because the cost of living continues to rise,
Sure.
but if your minimum wage stays flat, you're in
balancing out.
It's not balancing out.
Right.
And so that's the reason why a lot of individuals, now don't get me wrong, some folks may live beyond their means, but let them be the judge of that,
Sure.
right? Let's
Okay.
start with the things that we could do. The state of Georgia minimum wage, and you may not know this, is $5.15. Did you know that?
Yes.
The minimum wage in the state of Georgia, the minimum wage is $5.15. It's below the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25.
Can you hold that thought?
I can hold that thought.
We're going to come back and we're going to talk about the minimum wage.
Yo,
I'm sorry.
I'm a trainer to the stars, personal trainer, and I can help you out too on a personal level. It's no problem at all. You know what I mean? Hey, we working out together, fellas? The three of us?
Look who here. What's up?
What's up, Doc? I want to get on next, man. I want to work in.
Let's get it, big.
Kobe was in here last week, killing it, man, beasting. He had all his rings on, and that was like another 25
Come on, Doc.
pounds.
We have something to do, man.
The future waits for no one, so we refuse to wait for it. We're not just pilots and engineers, we are pioneers. Today, battles are waged in nanoseconds, and planes are piloted from the other side of the world. We turn night into day and fly missions in space. The future's not coming, it's already here. This is the future. Join us and be the future.
Welcome to the Carnival 30-minute tour.
Hey, Shaq. It's a 30-second tour.
No, man, it's like...
Now it's 26.
Welcome aboard! Ocean! Skyride! Mini golf. Relax, relax, relax! You take this man to be your husband?
I do.
Married. No time for basketball. Pool! Carnival. Choose fun.
Hello and welcome back to Our Point of View. We were talking about the minimum wage being at $5.15. We're going to elaborate on that. We're here speaking with State Representative Derrick Jackson, and we're talking about the shutdown, the government shutdown. And we were talking about living paycheck to paycheck. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so paycheck to paycheck, I really believe, in all sincerity, that folks want to make sure that they have a quality of life that they desire. They want to be able to live where they want to live, regardless of the zip code. They want to be able to purchase the cars that they want. But if their wages is at a starting block that should not be, and that $5.15 has been like that for quite some time. And so we continue to bring forward legislation to increase it, right? Because the cost of living continues to increase, Jacqueline. Right? Yeah. I can remember, and we all can recall, when I was a little boy, a half a gallon of milk was probably about 75 cents. I'm probably dating myself. But you can't find no half a gallon of milk for 75 cents.
No, sir.
Bread. I'm going to talk about this, the basic. I'm not talking about filet mignon or, any high-end type food, lamb chops. I'm just talking about the basics. Right? We got to get rid of these food deserts. We got to make sure that government shutdown, such as this, not only impact us by food consumption. I have another constituent that is a biologist, the breadwinner. 1/3 of the FDA that's in the state of Georgia has been laid off in their department. So think about all the latest recalls of the lettuce and E. coli and things like that. So 1/3 has been laid off, furloughed. That's incredulous. When you're furloughed, you cannot even have sick leave. That's incredulous, right? And so this government shutdown is impacting us in more ways than one. The IRS, everybody's getting ready for their tax season, right? To get it. I have another constituent that works for the IRS. Has been home the last 2.5 weeks, I believe she said.
Now, didn't they say they were going to go ahead and release the the checks for tax returns? They're going to release those?
If they're simple, like easy, right? But most of us don't have simple lives, right? We have very complicated 1040 long forms, right? And so you need audits. You need, again, our neighbors, our family members who are working in critical positions that are being called non-essential or have been furloughed. That's a problem.
Wow.
So we don't know the end date of this government shutdown, to answer your question. And so that's going to impact or possibly impact the Super Bowl and continue to impact the lives of Georgians who are federal employees. We have 136,000 federal employees in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
The FAA, controllers.
Air traffic controllers.
Right?
Now what you don't want is to have those folks not be in the tower. Well,
they have to be in the tower, but we can't land and take off planes.
Yeah, they're not in there.
But are they in the right state of mind?
Yeah, they're worried about their mortgage.
Are they worried
or their
about
car note?
That's
or food.
right. That's right.
On top of the stress to make sure that the airplanes land and take off and don't come in contact with each other while they're in the air.
That's right. That's right. And so what can we do? What we can do as citizens of the United States, we can start by calling Senator Isaacson and Senator Perdue and say, we as Georgians, the 10.8 million Georgians, we as your constituents of this state want you to encourage your president. I was very clear on that.
Yes, sir.
Your president to do the right thing. To do the right thing.
Right.
It's not about the wall now.
Right.
We're talking about lives.
People. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow. It's just amazing just how you have just seen a lot of division with this administration, with a lot of things that just are not fair and right. People aren't getting along. People are just being outright disrespectful and nasty to one another. and just in everyday lives.
Right.
You don't even have to even include the politics, just
Right.
in dealing one-on-one or dealing with groups of people. There are ethnicities, different religious groups that have been ostracized, that have been talked about, that have been disenfranchised, and those just aren't consistent with the American values. When President Obama was talking in that speech, he talked about how the immigrants made this country rich and made this country who it was, and that we were brought up, and he made a distinction, for the exception of the Indians, how we've become a melting pot, and how we've contributed to the lives of others and have given each other breath and new outlooks and new vision. It just seems like that is slowly dissipating and going to the wayside.
One of the things I discovered, two things in response to that point. I discovered while I was out campaigning for my reelection that we have more things in common than not.
Right.
Right? I don't care your gender, your ethnicity, your race. We have more things in common. We all want to be able to live and have a quality of life, right? But as soon as you inject today's politics, right? President Trump continued to stoke fear and anger and division. And we can't allow for his fear and his anger or his mad tweet at 3:48 a.m. create a division in this great country of ours. Will we have differences? Absolutely. Sure. I've been married to my wife going on 29 years. 90% of the time we agree on things. The other 10%, we agree to disagree. Right. That doesn't mean we run out and get a divorce. No, we agree to disagree. Since Trump has been in office, he has stoked more fear, more anger. When you have citizens who are a peaceful protest, expressing their thoughts, their values, and then you have a white nationalist, which has been in the news as recent, right, decide to get in their car and mow down a young lady in Charlottesville, Virginia, killed her because you were inspired by the hater-in-chief. He was inspired by Trump. He has blood on his hands.
Yeah, he does.
He inspired that. The president, the last 44 presidents, regardless of party, has always found the grace and the compassion to bring our country together. There's a lot of things I could say about George Bush.
Sure.
Right? But he brought this country together during 9/11.
He looks like a hero right about now.
He does. More ways than one, especially intellectually. But he brought this country together.
Yeah, he did.
Right? That's what you do. A leader always should find, regardless of their background, there should be no division around the topic of immigration. We're all immigrants, with the exception of Native, Americans. Our ancestors were brought here. Their ancestors decided to come here. Right. We all came on different boats, but we're in the same ship together today. And so that's the part that is so mystifying to me. Why the Republicans are not holding him accountable.
Right.
Why do you have his 30 to 32% of followers that continue to embrace, even against their own interests?
Yes.
Even against their own interests, they're seeing how this president has not delivered on his promises.
Wow.
Well, with that being said, thank you so very much for being with us. Just guys, remember everything you heard and everything we said was our point of view. We'll see you next time.